Hello, my name is Ken Kinter, and I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University. And the purpose of today's presentation is something called a Grati-to-do list. And if you don't know what that means, stay tuned. We'll explain. As usual, if you like what you're hearing, go tell somebody. We'd love your comments on this presentation. And also, if you have suggestions for other content, share, subscribe. And of course, we appreciate your time. So before I get started, I just wanted to talk about the project that I work for. It's called the State Hospital Psychiatric Rehabilitation Initiative, and it's an affiliation between the New Jersey Division of Mental Health and also the Department of Health of New Jersey. And its mission is to improve the working conditions and the quality of care at New Jersey state psychiatric hospitals by bringing in evidence-based practices and all sorts of other things. And it just wouldn't be possible without the financial and other forms of support from DMHAS and from DOH. So we are very grateful for that. So as far as this presentation goes, the objectives are to discuss procrastination, one of my favorite things, and some of the reasons for it. Talk about why traditional to-do lists do not work, and we will provide an alternative, something called the Grati-to-do list. And the goal of that is to make a list that increases rather than decreases motivation. Usually a to-do list, once someone's done their to-do list, they go, okay, I'm to done, and that's it. This is also based on something that was done on a previous video called The Art of the To-Do List. However, this goes a lot farther than this one does. So it's a bit of a replacement if you've seen that one before. But there are some parts in common. So the word procrastination means forward to tomorrow. I always wondered why it was pro, because that made it sound good. But what it really means is forward to tomorrow. And there's a large number of reasons why we put things off to tomorrow that we could easily do today. And I want you to think about this in terms of which ones actually make sense for you. Avoiding negative emotions that come with doing the things that we need to do. Fear of failure, both internally and, and what might be visible to other people. How about fear of success? If we have negative self-images if we have negative core beliefs about ourselves, we may fear success even more than failure. So that's an interesting concept. Risk avoidant. If you're depressed, if you're anxious, it just might not be okay to take on something else. You don't feel that well about yourself. Lack of information is a common one. I don't know how to proceed going forward, so that's why I don't do it. Dissonance is a big one for me. What to do next? I spend a lot of time thinking about the best way to do things instead of just doing them, and that is a gateway to procrastination. Perfectionism, what is the perfect way to do something instead of just a way or the way to do something? If you're overwhelmed, the last thing you want to do is look at everything you have to do because that's going to make you feel more overwhelmed. And of course, two classics here at the end. I really just don't want to do it. And this is just more crap I have to do. So you can see how anything that fits into that mindset, it's ripe for procrastination. So a couple other things about procrastination. I love both of these. Hard work often pays off after time, but laziness always pays off now. And also procrastination is like masturbation. It feels all good and fun while you're doing it, but in the end, you're only, all right, moving on. But I do like both of those thoughts about procrastination. So a typical to-do list for me might look like this. And you can see all sorts of mess in here. It's a long list and it's got personal stuff, professional stuff, long-term stuff, short-term stuff, stuff that's easy to do, stuff that's very involved to do. It's a mess, but this is normally what they look like. And then I just go through and I try to knock these things off and check them off. And certain things always manage to make it from one to-do list to the next, to the next, to the next. And I spend a lot of time looking at this list, thinking about what next, what next, what next. So what's one of the missing pieces is gratitude. All right. These are things that we are grateful for. Everything that we have to do is a result of some sort of blessing or gift that we've gotten. So obviously you have to be alive to even take these on and to be in a certain degree of health. I've got to have a doggy, got to be married, got to have a job. Like all of these things are things that I care about and care for. They are actually maintenance of gifts I've been given, as opposed to, it's just something else I have to do. So the idea of gratitude. So why don't we start from a place of, I am grateful for these things and I am happy to be able to do something to help maintain them or advance them. So this is where the Grati-to-do list comes in. It's where gratitude and to do come together. So it isn't about just obligation. So another thing that we kind of doom ourselves when we talk about getting these things done is, and you saw this on my earlier list, the goals were very vague. Like I just throw lose 20 pounds out there, like that's something I'm going to do this afternoon. Um, if I lose 19 pounds, have I failed? If I lose the 20 pounds and then gain it right back again, did I succeed? So the more specific and more thought out these goals are, and this is, you can see the qualifications here: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You've probably heard of these before. How specific can you make them so that there's a clearly defined line between I have accomplished this and I have not yet accomplished this? So that way you or someone else would easily know when that happened. And sometimes that involves putting a time limit on things. Sometimes that involves a specific task, but just to get it to that point. And if you haven't done a job, break it down into smaller jobs. Break it down into committing an hour to something, or like I said, cleaning one room in the house, starting with the sink as opposed to the whole house, because the big jobs will break you. It's a matter of, let's just find this small thing that we can do. I'm going to get all the dishes out of the sink. That's where I'm going to start, and that's it. So this is where SMART comes from. There's if you look up our SMART recovery video, we go into this in a little more detail. So let's talk about putting this Grati-to-do list together. And we're going to go through it step by step. So if you want, I encourage you to do this along with and pause the video between these next couple of slides that we're going to do. So I'll give you the instructions. I'll pause. You can stop the video or watch the video all the way through, and then you can go back and do it again. So step one is make a gratitude list, preferably, but it doesn't have to be in descending order. So on the right, here we go: health, self-care, marriage, work, friends, family, house, car, music, money. These are things that are very important to me. It's roughly, but not completely in descending order. So these are things that I am grateful for. So you have an opportunity now to put that list down, the things that you are grateful for. Okay, step two, goals for each area of gratitude and breakout. So you still see all caps here: the health, self-care, marriage, work, except I have a couple jobs. So, okay, now I have my jobs broken out. I have a couple different musical projects going on, so I've broken that out. And for each of these things, there is a goal. Now, this goal is a long-term goal. This goal is comprised of a bunch of steps. So we're going to put all those down. So you get a pretty good look at what those are. This is not an exhaustive list, but I was just trying to keep it to a page. Now, from those goals, if the goals were the staircase, these are the individual steps. So here are the objectives. Again, you can see all the stuff I'm grateful for. You can see the goals. And then in the rightmost column, you can see these actual tasks. These are phone calls. These are emails. These are, specific tasks that move closer in the direction of goals. Now, sometimes when you get an objective done, the goal is done, and then that one comes off the board. More often than not, that objective will be replaced by another objective, but that's still progress. You've moved forward on that. And these are roughly a little more prioritized now. Okay, so this is a step I've done. You don't have to do it, but it's been helpful for me. And that is, I just color coded these various things so I could sort them out. So for example, green means that I did my part and I'm waiting to hear from someone else, but the job isn't done. Gray means this is like a daily regular thing that it's always going to be on the list. So you just have to keep with it, whether it's a day to day or some interval of time. Red means urgent, which means I should really start the day with it. That's like the first thing, something that comes up. And yellow means it's in progress somewhere. I've started it, but I still have work to do in it. You can form your own system. I sort of did a stoplight system here, but you can do what works for you. Otherwise, this slide is exactly the same as the slide before. The only thing that's been added is the colors as I go. All right, so then another piece about the Grati-to-do list is Covey's Quadrants. And I don't know if you're familiar with these, but it basically divides everything you do into importance and urgency. Important means it's important to you. It genuinely has value and importance to you. Urgent means it's important to somebody else and it's getting brought to you because it's a priority for someone else. And there's a discussion to be had in there whether someone else's urgency should be your importance, but we'll get to that. Quadrant one is things that are important and urgent. They are important to you and they have a time issue. They need to be done soon. Quadrant two is long-term growth. These are all the things that you want to do in your life long-term, your creativity, relationships, preparation, all the long-term growth stuff. Lots of good stuff in here. Quadrant three is urgent but not important. And these are all the interruptions, meetings, other people's priorities. And quadrant four is things that are neither important nor urgent. They tend to be either things we do to take a break or time wasters. Um, and maybe in small doses, these things aren't bad, but they tend to take on a life of their own. You know, if you've ever had that experience of binge watching a TV show instead of doing something you needed to do, that's kind of when we're in quadrant four. So let's talk about how these quadrants work. Now, they're numbered the way they are for a reason. Quadrant one is considered to be priority, then two, then three, then four. But here's what typically happens. What typically happens is quadrant three, other people's priorities, get moved up. So we start out with quadrant one, but then quadrant three takes the place of quadrant two. How many times have you sacrificed your own long-term growth and things that you've wanted to do because somebody else had something that they wanted you to do that you didn't really care about, but you did it anyway? How this interplay works for me, just to give you an example, is I'll be driving on my way into work and I'll be thinking about the things that I want to do, which are quadrant one and quadrant two, you know, the urgent and important things that are up front, and then what am I going to do to help develop myself and have growth in the long run? Then I get to work and I look at my emails and I look at my phone calls and get my messages and all that kind of stuff. And here comes quadrant three. So I return that email, I return that phone call, I talk to someone else, I do this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, it's lunchtime and I haven't touched quadrant one and I haven't touched quadrant two. It's been quadrant three all morning. So lunch, I reset, I go back in the afternoon, and you know, I might do the exact same thing again. I might get completely taken over by quadrant three, and then I go home, and all the way home, I'm thinking about the stuff in quadrant one and quadrant two that I wanted to do and didn't do. I'm kicking myself. I'm stressed because I spent all day doing stuff, not getting done what I wanted to get done, and spending a lot of time questioning my priorities about what I was doing. So then what do? I go home, get on my phone, watch TV, and do quadrant four for the rest of the day instead of allocating my time and my energy according to my priorities. So what I did here was I took the four quadrants and took that whole list of stuff that was before and just broke it out. So here's my quadrant ones, my quadrant twos, my quadrant threes, and my quadrant fours. A lot of meetings in quadrant three, a lot of goofing off in quadrant four, and some self-care rightly put in quadrant one, because that's one of those things that usually gets pushed back. So then I would say probably the last step is, now that you've got these things prioritized in sort of quadrants, now let's reassemble it into a vertical list, because now you've got kind of four little lists here, there, and everywhere, which you can use that if you want, if it works better for you that way. But the way I've done it is I take those quadrants and then put them in a vertical. So it's quadrant one, then two, then three, and four. So they are in descending order of urgency and importance. And here's what that looks like. I've now resorted all of them. So these are very specific now. They're much more smart friendly. And I could definitely elaborate more on them than they are, but they're also quadrant one, two, and three going down. I didn't put quadrant four on there. Four shows up by itself. So here's my to-do list. And it is in descending order and it is prioritized. So I don't have to spend time thinking about, oh, what next, what next, what next? I go right to the next thing. And this is where this has really been of a benefit to me. I found that this has made me much more efficient in getting things done. Things don't fall through the cracks because they've been written down. I've got them. And I'm prioritizing my time and energy where I really want it, as opposed to whatever I think of next or whatever is next on the list. So two other points before wrapping this up. There were two other tricks of the trade that I learned. One was from Peggy Swarbrick at CSPNJ. And she suggested something called the 15-minute rule. And the 15-minute rule is, if you really don't feel like doing something and you're putting it off, just commit to doing it for 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, you can drop it and walk away, and you get full credit in your own mind for doing the task. The secret is you usually don't stop at 15 minutes. At that point, the glass window's been broken and you're now doing it. So at this point, you're like, well, you know what? I'm already doing it. So you keep going. So but the 15 minutes might be enough to get you moving, because it's just such a ridiculously small unit of time. I've done this also with, I'll just send an email. I'll just make a phone call. I'll just send a text. Like I'll just break it down into that ridiculous small level that I'll do it. Sometimes that's all I do, but more often than that, I sort of tie into it and get going. The other one is the classic AA book ending, and that is where is the payoff? Very often, one of the reasons we're not doing these things is that they don't have a payoff for us right away. We just feel like we're grinding, 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 and there's nothing in it for us. So what happens if you make this list of things that you're going to do today, or you commit to two or three of those things and you're going to take them out? So what happens if you take those two or three out? What's the payoff for you? Is there going to be something that you look forward at the end of it, which will power you through it? I used to be quite phobic about dentists. And the deal I made with the dentist is that I could, after every dentist appointment, I would go out and buy a cassette. And that tells you how long ago I started doing this. Um, and that would be my incentive. I would make the dentist appointment and attend the dentist appointment because I knew I was going to go cassette shopping afterwards. So that was my little payoff. And I would, while I'm sitting in the chair going through God knows what, I'm thinking about this payoff. This is what's getting me through. So the 15-minute test and the book ending are two other suggestions for this. So to summarize, procrastination is self-manufactured. We built it, we can change it. Uh, make this, and the Grati-to-do list starts with making a gratitude list, the things that you are grateful for. And from that gratitude list comes the goals. From the goals come the objectives and the tasks. Then we reviewed Covey's quadrants, the urgent and the important, so that we can put things into priority for us and for the people around us. So my goal for you is that you try this out and make this Grati-to-do list for yourself and see what impact this has on your productivity and also your mental state about what you are doing, taking away some of that, what should I be doing next, and kind of waffling in between tasks. I would love to hear comments about how this works for you. If there's something about it that doesn't work for you, or if there's something else that you came up with that works better, I think I would love to hear about that from you because this is an evolving thing. So this is where I got the source material from, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Doran's article where the SMART thing came from. And you may want to look up SMART Recovery. They have a really cool worksheet that covers this that you can use. It's all right there. So you just follow along with the worksheet. And the book Changing for Good is one of the best self-help books I've ever seen. If there's something that you're trying to change and you haven't changed it, this can almost, pardon the word, diagnose why, find the source of where your resistance is, and help you move forward to the next step with that. It's an amazing book. And with that, I'm going to sign off. So thank you for your time, and we will do this again sometime.